Okay, go.
Hi, this is Dr. Pachenik, and today I want to talk about truth and relevance to our history. There's an excellent show on Netflix called Crown, created by Peter Morgan, starring Miss Foy, but it's really about the Queen of England and how she confronted the Duke of Windsor, who was a collaborator with the Nazis, and told him he cannot come back to England. That moment of truth was really penetrating for me because it occurred about December 7th. On my birthday and a few days ago. And unfortunately, unlike England, unlike Russia, unlike many of our allies in World War II, we still have not told the truth about the attack on Pearl Harbor. We still call it a sneak attack. It was not a sneak attack. It was a false flag. It was one of the most orchestrated false flags we've ever had. 2,500 sailors and soldiers died, 1,500 were wounded, 20 battleships were destroyed, 300 airplanes were destroyed. But it was a beginning of how FDR wanted to enter into World War II because it was already 1941 on December 7th, the day of infamy, and he knew he had to start getting into the war. We really didn't get into the war till 1943. However, the problem for us has been that we have always created false flags, and that is our way of creating lies, distortions. Unlike the English, unlike the Russians, unlike many others, we have hidden behind those false flags. 9/11 was a false flag because it involved Cheney and Bush. They never came forth and never told the real truth for a war that we didn't really need in Iraq and for people who died there unnecessarily. There are many countries who hide behind false flags, but one of the most important countries that one never thinks about is Holland. Yes, Holland, not France, not Russia, not Sweden, not Germany. Germany's been very honest about its history in terms of extermination, but Holland has been one of the most pathological liars. What am I talking about? Holland had created a story about a little Jewish girl who hid away in the walls of a building and during the Holocaust and eventually was taken away by the Germans. And they made that into the narrative of Holland. And they made that into really an industry where Anne Frank, the word and the name Anne Frank, becomes the sine qua non of Dutch honesty and Dutch intensity during World War II. The truth of the matter is Holland was an incredible collaborator with the Nazis. The Queen had fled, the household had fled, they were cowards, they knew that they would be killed, and instead what happened is 25,000 Dutch soldiers associated themselves and officially became part of the Wehrmacht. And then they became part of the SS. So you're talking about 25 to 40,000 Dutch soldiers who were complete soldiers in the Nazi war machinery. More importantly, the Dutch don't mention this one fact. Poland had 94% of its Jews exterminated. Holland had 92% of their Jews exterminated by only the Dutch. There were no Nazi officers. There were no German officers. In fact, the Germans were completely stunned that the Dutch were able to round up the Jews and kill them on their own. Also, Holland denied that there were any work camps or concentration camps. There happened to have been 2 or more. So what we have in this case is the history of lies, deceit, and the ability to continue a history that doesn't make any relevance to truth. One of the reasons why I'm so strong on the issue of truth vis-a-vis our republic is if we don't begin to tell how we began the wars and the revolution, which was a false flag, the Boston Tea Party was a false flag, the Civil War was a false flag, Vietnam was a false flag, Korea was a false flag. They all initiated wars we did not need or required, and eventually we lost those wars. The Civil War is something I will go into. It was not a war for the freedom of slaves. Let me say the following. The concept that truth will set you free is very true. But if we don't tell the truth to ourselves, as Queen Elizabeth had said to England, I do thank her for that, we will never be a free republic and an honest one. On that note, good night and good luck.